like to open the floor for some questions.
Felix, so you're advocating for basically a class to be taught in a mandatory fashion for in a high school curriculum. You touched on this a little bit. Maybe you could say a little bit more about what are some of the necessary topics that you think should be included in such a class?
Yeah, anything from, and everything from debt management to retirement planning to investing, how to avoid scams and fraud, estate planning. I think the list goes on, and I think that's why it needs to be a whole credit, because there are so many subjects that need to be covered. Thank you.
For a high schooler who realizes the need for debt management, or just financial literacy, but doesn't get that in class, even just very practically, how do you recommend they get that?
I think what comes first is the need for the people in charge to recognize the need. So if they know how important it is and how they're undercutting their students by not offering it, I think the logical step is to provide it. So I think awareness would help these schools maybe change thought processes towards finance. That answers your question.
I'm going to clarify Jervis's question.
Okay.
I think what he's asking is, in your research, did you come across ways that when it's not offered in the school for someone his age to learn about that? Like, are there online courses or anything like that? Is that what you're asking, Jonas?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think you personally, you know the need. It's the same kind of deal. You should go after that. You should pursue that knowledge because it's so important to you. And I think there's many ways you can do that. Like, I myself have taken online courses and a lot of these different things. I stumbled upon this while reading about it and saw the need for it. So I think it's up to the individual person. If you're taking this upon yourself, there's many ways to navigate it, but being proactive is probably a good way to do that.
Thank you.
Can I finally ask?
Yeah.
This is more of a technical question, so no worries if you didn't come across in your research. But what are the professional certifications that a person should have to teach such a class, or what kind of person should teach these classes?
Yeah. So I don't know all the qualifications for being a teacher. I know that Mr. Clay taught a business class last year in which I learned a lot of valuable things. I think he's an all-around, he's just, he knows everything about it.
Yeah.
Because he's started business. But I think the person who's teaching this class needs to be interested in it, know the need for it, has an education in it, knows what they're talking about, not just spouting off. Besides that, I don't know the specific qualifications of even my teachers.
That's fair.
I don't know what they do with
These are
it.
the qualifications to be Mr. Clay.
Yeah, well, that's learned experience.
Thank you. Great job.
One in the back, no? James?
Would you say that it's important for schools to be taking all their what they say should be in the class from the government or from outside sources such as local businessmen or online opportunities? What do you say should be the root for what they see is important?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that goes back to Big Isaiah's thesis, just talking about all curriculum needs to be the same. I think that it should be the same in the topics they cover. I think a universal understanding of what needs to be taught would be helpful. Making sure they're not veering off, because Hannah's thesis, there's a lot of random TikTok facts that are not true about finance. So some exposure to truth. I think there should be a standardized curriculum surrounding it. Father, then Mr. Kendrick.
You made a really good point. Talk about the industrial era in economics and finance, leading to today.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I can do that. So, Horseman, 1837, made this structure which it functioned very well in how it was supposed to function. Highly trained individuals teaching in the core subjects, I think a lot of it still applies, like the thought process that we need English and science, like that's still a part of it. Robert Kiyosaki, which I didn't include in my thesis because he's kind of like, he went bankrupt. But I think he made a good point when he said the nature of the economy changed when, in America, when we shifted off the gold standard and now our money is based off debt. So that changed the financial landscape from what it was before to what it is now, based entirely off debt. So, and it's purely financial. Everything, almost all aspects of our life surrounding like growth and the search for comfortability stem from finance, how to navigate debt. So it's the distinction. I think the need is still there from here, but there's added needs. Society's changed.
Mr. Hill, I just want to tell you, I know you had a compliment first. You had some questions even here in the recent past about presentation. I want to commend your presentation. I think you handled that really well. Good work. One question, I remember sitting in a large teacher training seminar before working at PCA, still in the public school system, and the man was highlighting the fact that the list of things schools have to teach now as opposed to 50 years ago has like multiplied by 100. And so you're raising financial need and you're saying the solution is for schools to teach that. What would you say to someone who's saying, hey, we also need training in how to stay married, how to have a family, how to control your diet, mental health, regulating social media? I think we need a mandatory credit for all of these equally important things that are destroying people today. What would you say to maybe like a head of high school who wants to do everything well but can't do it all?
Sure. So I guess you and my grandma were thinking on the same line because she asked me a similar question. I would say that many of the problems we see in America, from like marriage issues kind of deal to like how to treat your children to like all these other stress, mental health. I feel like so many of them, because we live in a financially driven world, are driven by finances. And so when finances are tight, parents fight more. They are less attentive to their children's problems. I think there's a direct correlation between like money issues and mental health, most definitely. Somebody said it, one of the three, talking about like when you lose your job, that's anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with that, and that's because money has gone. So I think the upfront, immediate consequences of financial illiteracy that lead to all these things are much more detrimental in their causation. Like the direct consequences of it are more detrimental than the direct consequences of those things, all of which are important. But maybe like schools should set aside time for this specifically.
Yeah, thank you.
So, there's some, I don't know if this is a question or if it's really a statement, but there are probably some people in this room who, like me, can remember way back in the day when I was in school, we were taught things like this. We had life skill teachings, woodworking, typing. Y'all don't know what that is, but we had courses to teach us how to type. What else did we take? Home ec. All of those things would have been included in that. And then, as Isaiah pointed out, the Department of Education comes along. We don't need to teach life skills anymore. And I'm curious to know, because you had great command of all your statistics, I'm proud of you. Did you find in your research that maybe 50 years ago or 40 years ago, when people were being educated that way, that it looked a little different for them? That you could function and make sound financial decisions as a high school graduate?
Yeah.
Did you do any research that showed a shift in what people were like then and what they are now? And that being taught in schools did make a difference? Because I think that it did.
So I remember you brought this up when I said it in your class, and I think it's an excellent question. I think that finance used to be generally known of how to navigate it. So 50 years ago, it was a lot more cut and dry. There wasn't a lot of added things. Like, I bet in which I haven't researched this, but I bet we would find that the people preying on the financially illiterate, like those companies, I feel like there was less. I feel like people were more financially secure in that they probably had a little bit of schooling, which I didn't do research on why they stopped that, but it's clearly skewed priorities, a lack of knowledge, or maybe a lack of caring. It could be something even more devious than that, because it's clearly vital. Like I said, it should not be cast aside. It's wisdom, and wisdom should not be neglected because we fall into devastation. So skewed priorities, I would say.
So I know that you said that a lot of parents aren't available for their kids, but do you think that parents can still properly teach finance to their children, or do you think that they're not professional enough to be able to teach that?
So I included my paper, but I really didn't do much from that. So parents, like I know my parents and my grandparents and most parents in here have learned knowledge from navigating finance in this world. Mr. Clay maybe more than others, just kidding. So I think, yes, if they set aside time for it, they could explain, okay, 500% interest is terrible for a loan. It'll devastate you. But also, not everybody are like the wonderful parents we have in here. Many middle and like lower class families, their parents are already stressed about finances. They don't know how to navigate it. So learned experience can only go so far. I think anybody trained, which I know because they're trained and they taught me. I know a little bit about stuff. Anybody trained will do better than somebody who just learned through learned experience.
So two kind of different questions. One, that's so funny. You're the mom who's figuring out how to pay for food and daycare. You say, hey, payday loans, they're terrible loans, I'm not gonna do that. What do you do?
I say that, I'm the mom.
Yeah, you're the mom.
So I'm the one with, okay.
You're the one trying to figure out how to put food on the table and
All right.
daycare.
There are a lot more secure options. So when I looked up payday loans online, the first one was about like where to get them, and then the second and the third ones were about other options, like please do not do this. Here are valid choices, and I think that there are a lot of different options, like food stamps. There's a lot of people in churches definitely willing to navigate you through these times. I mean, churches, we learn in the gospel, like I said, should not be cast aside. Take care of the widow. So there's other options.
Because part of my question comes from actually talking to someone who did ministry, financial ministry when they lived in St. Louis. And they were talking about how sometimes payday loans are the only option people have.
Yeah.
And so, financial instruction can be complicated, I guess, part of the point. I guess the second question is, do you think we should teach 12-year-olds driver's ed?
We should teach. No, I think we should teach like okay, 12, and then they get their driver's license permit around 15. So maybe driver's ed in 14. So it's because
Okay, I think that's the better.
yeah.
So part of the challenge today, it seems like, is that young people who are growing up don't really have financial independence until 22, 20%. And sometimes you're not paying attention until you actually have a responsibility. And so I think that is a piece that's complicated in that you can have a class of 17, 18, but like when you're really paying attention, it's frequently when you're responsible for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I would say to that is I'm taking pre-calculus. A lot of my people are taking calculus and physics and other stuff that boggles my brain, but I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm still taking it because it could be necessary for that path. Well, like financial literacy may be hard in some of the ways we execute it. I think there are basics. Like I know 5 + 5. I could fall off my bike and know that. I could punch in the face. 5 + 5. And if somebody had an easy, like a simple financial education, they could see like that debt is bad. boom, fall off their bike, get punched in the face, like boom, 500%, terrible. So it's about learning the basics, and even when it gets a little bit more complicated, like, I'm not gonna be an engineer, I'm still not doing well in that, I'm in the class. So I think the need will be there, and like students will be attentive as far as they want to be attentive, and I've learned that just because that's the way I am.
Great answer.
Yeah, and then Mitchell.
So, actually, that ended up being a great segue into my question. You know, I've been through high school, college, and a graduate professional program, and everyone from 13 to 35-year-olds, when a class is required, there are people in there who are gonna be like, why do I have to take this?
100%.
And they check out immediately because it's required, even if it's useful. They check out because it's required. And I guess that's sort of like the adage of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess my question is, if you require a class, and is that gonna make people check out? I mean, how do you actually engage people with this material? How do
Yeah.
you get them to care about it?
So let's say like there's a wall, and then there's like stuff like you have the chance to get something through this wall. Like you could throw and like some of the stuff might get through, and say this wall is like stuff that you'll learn, and this is knowledge of finance. It's better that there's somebody trying to get that finance in there in the first place, and that some stuff might stick, than somebody chucking stuff at nothing. There's nothing even trying to get in there. Even the classes that I've been the least attentive, if I were to have a test in front of me, I could still kind of navigate my way through it. So, like, yeah, if it's necessary and it's mandatory, then some stuff will get in and maybe some stuff won't, but it's better than if no knowledge in. Mitchell.
You know, so a lot of us are about to go to college or trade school and they get a real job. So what's something we should try to do or avoid doing if we want to gain financial freedom?
So I would say start off with a base in financial education. Like that's the whole thesis. Our school, it doesn't offer finance classes, but we've had teachers proactive in putting in us the need for it, civics especially. So be proactive about your education. Know how money works in a way that you can achieve comfortability. Does that answer your question? Being proactive, know the need. If you know the need, then you will be proactive. Unless you're just lazy. Any more questions? All right. Thank you all very much.